To Walford United WFC. Hello and welcome to Walford United with me, John Foster, MUFC. We're going to talk about the Man United players who have been in several cups over the last couple of weeks. 4 of them actually lifted a cup as well, which is great news. So we'll talk about those. We'll talk a little bit about Lionesses and other players and clubs that come up along the way. But yeah, fantastic to see 16 players called up from the Man United team representing 8 different countries. Now, I remember it was only about 3 years ago that there's only 1 or 2 countries, just England and Holland, whereas now there's a hell of a lot more. So great things to discuss, and we'll get on with that shortly. Hopefully Rob will join us as well. He's just running a bit late. So let's just say hello to everybody. Connor, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not bad. It's going to be, I think I said to you earlier before the show, John, it's good to talk about something other than what's going on right now because, good to get some... Hopefully, it'll be a fun show. There's plenty to talk about, plenty of good things. So, yes, good to be talking about something different.
Yeah, lots to talk about. So we'll just get into little things and just see where the conversation goes. Catherine, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent.
I'm awake, which is great.
So what time is it over there? 2 o'clock, did you say?
It's 2:00 in the afternoon, but I work Australia time, and so there's on days where there's a lot of games in the evening, that's nearly 5-6 o'clock in the morning my time. So there are times where I do stay up that late.
Is that just because you cover the Australia League the majority of your time? Is that why you stay up that kind of time?
So I'm editor-in-chief of 3 magazines there. And so one's called FTBL, like football without any vowels. And we cover anything that's Australian related to football. And then there's another one called The Women's Game, which basically covers Australian women in sport. But at the moment, because the A-League's going on, and they had this crazy February football frenzy, 60 games in February. It just meant that every single night, practically, I had games. So I was having to deal with the post-match and putting that up and making sure, kind of put my sleep schedule all over the place. Let's put it that way. So yes, it's 2:00 in the afternoon, but for me, it's actually 6 a.m. because I'm on Melbourne time.
Kind of, I have difficulty just keeping up with the 3 or 4 Man United teams, let alone on every continent. I mean, we're going to talk mainly about European teams today. Well, obviously, USA and Canada might come up, and New Zealand might come up. Catherine's over in Canada, just talk about Australian football as well. So I think everything's covered. We'll start off with the Arnold Clark Cup. Great last 10 minutes of the tournament there for the Lionesses. Getting that victory. I know a few people who went down. First of all, Connor, just how nice is it that we've actually, well, I say how nice is it, that's controversial. How interesting is it that we've got 16 players now who are representing their country?
Well, it shows that we're doing something right. If you've got international footballers, that can only be a good thing. And I'm not going to hide it. Everyone knows my thoughts on international football, but I've always stressed as a player, one of the greatest things you can do is represent your country. So the fact that we've got so many players that have gone out and not only been selected for the national team, starting for the national team, we've had a few captains out there as well, with Jackie, Diane, Maria as well. So we've had a few where the captain's armband, which is another good thing. It just shows that we're going in the right direction. Because I think you said at the start, you go back a year or so, 12 to 18 months, we wouldn't have only had, 1 or 2, maybe 3 players in national teams. Now we've got 8 different countries and 16 players. So yeah, it just shows we're doing the right thing, really.
Starting to look like a Premier League team.
Yeah, no, that's a good point.
But I mean, without wanting to playing devil's advocate, I think this shows not just the strength of where United's come, but also the strength of what's happened in the FAWSL since professionalization occurred 3.5 years ago. Because prior to professionalization, outside Arsenal, Chelsea, Manchester City, you wouldn't have had, even at those clubs, you wouldn't have had this variety of international players within the country. Most would have been aiming to go to the US or even maybe Germany. And so I think it just shows the evolution of where the league went, that it is a place that international players are aiming to play throughout. Because 16 players at 4 cups is quite exceptional, but there are a couple of teams that had somewhat similar representation. So I think it's a good thing for the league, enjoying a very competitive league.
Good thing for the league, good thing for the fans as well, because even though obviously we're English and we want to see English youngsters come through, it is, we do cry out to see other talents as well. We've got Anna Bache with us and Ivana Fuso. Well, we could go through more, Vilda Risa, Jackie. These are some of the fan favourites as well, sometimes more so than some of the English players. So it is great. It's what fans want to see. And obviously WSL want to see it as well, and Sky want to see it. They want to see the best players out there in one league.
I think that as well kind of shows the strength of the WSL. And maybe it's because there's a bigger history in England of cheering for your club. But it's taken nearly 10 years in the NWSL for people to really, for the average soccer fan to come in and really cheer for clubs and not cheer for U.S. women's national team players who might be on clubs. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know. I like the evolution of where the FAWSL is going. I think it's very exciting. That's my main point.
Absolutely. Now, so do I. I've left this comment on screen because it's been knocking around Twitter a little bit throughout the day. Katie Zelem, why take Katie Zelem and not play her at all? That was my only gripe. I think, well, potentially it's because obviously she probably wanted to play her best players, and we weren't winning the tournament until the last 5 minutes of the game. So I think, if we had a game spare, she could have potentially played some of her weaker players, and now that's not a gripe on Zelem at all. So I think she's done fantastically well just to get into the squad. Of all the players that could have been chosen, she was chosen. She was picked on form. It's a massive shame that she didn't get any game time. I think she was the only United player that didn't get any game time and travelled. But she still picked up that medal. She's still, I'm sure, did a lot of training behind the scenes and help that team spirit and work part of the team. Just because she didn't kick a ball in them 90 minutes, it doesn't mean that she didn't contribute in some shape or form. Connor, do you want to just pick up on that one as well?
Yeah, I think it's the thing is, a lot of people have said, she wasn't picked or she wasn't played because she's not good enough. Well, she wouldn't have been picked full stop if that was the case. She's clearly gone for a reason. She's been picked for every national I don't know what you call them, like group of games every time. So there's a reason why. I think she's just a little bit unfortunate that there's a lot of good English midfielders in that squad. You look at the players that are ahead of her, and like you said there, it's a trophy that England wanted to win. And like you said, we weren't winning it until the last, I think Millie Bright scored in the 84th minute or something like that. So we left it so late. There's not really much point bringing her on then. So it's just unfortunate. I think if it was a group of friendlies, she might have got some game time, but
But Zelem's got one cap, right?
Yeah, I think she was a few weeks ago when she first came straight in, and I don't know if she started. I think she came on maybe to sort of think, but just one cap.
You're a couple of months out from the Euro. Arguably, at this point, you'd think that Wiegman is probably quite coming close to what she wants in her expectations. So I would say it's probably a good thing that she was just selected, even if clearly she wanted to get a look in at her, even if she didn't necessarily play. I think we'll see when the April window comes again. That's when we'll get a really clear view of where Wiegman's going with her Euro squad. But yeah, like as Connor said, she's got so much competition in what she can do. And it does look like Wiegman does want players who can do more than one place. And I think she was kind of trying that as well, but with more experienced players. So, I mean, Williamson comes to mind, being able to move up and down. So
I think as well, you only have to look at English men's sides in the past. Look at the last 20, 30 years. You'll get certain players that will get selected. They won't play a single game for a whole tournament. I think there was a couple of players in the English Euros run last year that didn't play a single game. Not everybody can play in a 23, 25 person squad. So it is going to be difficult to play everybody. And like I said, this wasn't, although I think it's a glorified friendly, it is technically still a tournament. So England would have wanted to win that as almost like confidence and proof that, we can beat, it was a group of Germany, Spain, Canada, wasn't it? So almost proof that, we can win this. And it gives you then optimism going into the summer. So it's good. I don't see it as a bad thing that she didn't play. Obviously, I'd have loved to have seen all the United girls, get some game time, and it's unfortunate that she didn't. But ultimately, it's not the end of the world. She got selected for a reason. She clearly rates it highly. She wouldn't have been in the squad at all. There's plenty of other players in the WSL that are English could have made that squad. But she made the squad, and I think that just speaks volumes of her. But yeah, she'll get game time. It's just when you've got a squad of 20, 23, 25, you're not going to be able to play absolutely everybody.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. I'm going to bring Rob in. Here we are. Hello, Rob. Welcome to the show, mate. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Sorry for being slightly late. I'm away from the current home at the moment, so.
Oh, okay. Do you want to give us a bit of a hint where you are?
I'm in your enemy territory. I'm in Liverpool for a couple of days.
I should have asked. No, I really appreciate you joining us, and I saw you on Twitter. I think it was last week, talking about the current games that were going on at the time, and I thought, well, now's a good time to get Rob on. I know how passionate you are about non-English football as well. But we will just continue talking a little bit about the Lionesses and the Arnold Clark Cup. Just what are your thoughts, first of all, on that tournament and on how England did?
I mean, well, obviously, as we all know here, the Arnold Clark Cup is the pinnacle of world football. It's a competition that everyone aspires to win. Arnold Clark Cup winners, you'll never sing that. It's one of those things. I'm delighted that it is actually that we took it seriously and got some really good sides coming to the Arnold Clark Cup. I think it was much more beneficial doing that than doing what the men tend to do before tournaments, which is play someone who, quite frankly, we should be beating in the group stage level, wallop them, and then everyone, 3 Lions suddenly is on every single radio. I will, however, say I thought from an organisational point of view, it worried me ahead of the Euros because I thought organisation-wise it was shambles. I thought attendances were particularly poor. I thought times of matches were abysmal. Clearly, there was no. I saw someone. I think the organizer on Twitter said that they planned on doing matches one after the other. Well, but they couldn't for COVID. Even if you couldn't do that, I'm sure you could have them closer together. And yeah, it was a shame actually because again, as we said, we had 4 top nations playing there, and they weren't playing in front of attendances at times that befitted the quality and rank of players. I mean, the Ballon d'Or winner, for example, was playing in front of 300 people. That to me is wrong.
Mm-hmm. That's a great point. I mean, 2:30 kickoffs, I think it was, wasn't it? One of them. I appreciate some of them was like school holidays, like half term and stuff like that, but still.
So, what was the reason that they couldn't do back-to-back double headers?
I was told it was due to COVID and needing to disinfect dressing rooms and disinfect, which I do understand to a point. However, yeah, I think it was 338 were at the Canada game at Germany, Germany Spain, and yeah, the Canada, I think Spain game had 143 at it, and Germany, one of the other games that was on at a ridiculous time had about 40 people there at the beginning.
You would think February weekday. You guys don't have school holidays at this time of the year, right?
Well, they're this week.
Oh,
they're this week that's just happened, but that doesn't really affect. And I know the evening kickoff, that 7:45 kickoff on Sunday, it was going to be an absolute nightmare because it's not an easy stadium to get back from. And that was my concern. Was I like the fact they've tried to bring sort of it to more places. I don't think all the games should be played in this London bubble. 100% not. But I do feel that the stadiums they picked, if you were going to use those stadiums, you had to have situations where you were counted and sort of made a day of it. And I understand the way I thought it was, and I only realised this afterwards, is that, yeah, exactly, and that's a nonsense because I would say the teams, it wasn't as if the game afterwards was a lower quality match. I'm not going to,
you play at 8 p.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
If people are working the next day and it's in Norwich, like I've actually taken the train from there to London. It's a good 2-hour journey, so you're not going to get that crowd.
Yeah, exactly. And this was I saw people saying this and saying, well, it was cheap. Why didn't people bring the kids for that exact reason? Because although the kids might have half term, it doesn't necessarily follow the parents. Are going to follow suit. I mean, I looked at the Arnold Clark Cup matches and I said I'd really like to go up and do it, but realistically, if I do it, I have to take a whole day off sort of work and probably a day off afterwards to travel up and down. because where I am sort of in just outside of London. What really, to me, I think surprised me is the lack of amenities at stadiums. I was told, no, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Norwich. I think Norwich and Carrow Road was a great choice for a stadium. I think Carrow Road is a good stadium. It's a Premier League quality stadium, but the lack of facilities that were available, I was told, people had trouble getting food, trouble getting in, using the facilities, using the loos, no sort of, fan zone set up. And to me, that was the sort of thing that was going to encourage people. If you have, 2 games on in a day, have some activities on in between, have somewhere you can go and get a bite to eat, let people out the stadium. Because I think it was the Riverside and Carrow Road were used, Wolves were used. All 3 of those stadiums have hosted Premier League football in the last 5 years. 2 of them host it currently. There was facilities and the ability to put on these, extra events and things to keep people there. And clearly it wasn't part of the thinking. And that, to me, is what really concerns about the Euros, because I want us to do a good job with the Euros this summer, especially after the debacle of the final.
You wouldn't expect that the group organizing the Euros would be the same as the group that organizes this.
No, I just have no trust in English organisation whatsoever. Again, the fact the Olympics went off without a hitch in 2012 to me is still the biggest mystery in my lifetime. The fact we managed to, make a sort of a success of that, and even then after that, there was big sort of long-term logistic and structural issues. But my concern is that I don't want people suddenly just to think that it's just the Lionesses that are getting interested in them, because these were 4 top teams at a tournament, and I don't think you should have had a situation where teams are playing gates that would be tiny for a W championship game.
But to play devil's advocate, like in the She Believes Cup, if you look at the non-US women's national team games, if it's not a doubleheader that's directly before, and even if it is a doubleheader, most of the time you don't even get 10% of the attendance of what you'll actually get. Like they've filled 40,000 person stadiums during that tournament, but the game just prior to that starts with 2,000-3,000 in the stadium. So it's not a problem that's unique to England, the non-national team game, if that makes any sense.
I think as well, sorry, John, I know we're kind of going a little bit off piece here, but I think as well, one of the biggest problems, I think, from just looking at it from somebody who follows both the men's and the women's, is this is the issue if you clash the international break for the women's with the Premier League, because as you just said there, Norwich and Wolves, obviously, and heard you say Middlesbrough as well, I think it was. They're all still playing matches, so they had to try and fit them in around when they're not playing at home. They can't change the facilities too much because they can't change all the branding around in a few days. I mean, they could, but it would have been a rush job. They're then changing all the branding around, like Wolves, away at Arsenal today and whatever, all these games going on. So if it was during the international break for the men as well, I think they probably would have made a better job and pushed it a bit more, but they kind of crammed it in and around games using stadiums that Norwich were playing in 3-4 days later at home, and it just all seemed a bit of a mess to me and all very rushed, whereas I think the Euros would be slightly different because the men's football would have stopped as well. And, it would be a little bit different, but I just think this just felt
also,
very rushed.
The Euros will have UEFA as the organizing committee and not...
Oh, yeah, I have absolutely no faith in UEFA. I mean, saying that, that's not really, that's even more of a reason for me to be concerned.
They understand how to do this. Like, you have to remember, this is the first time that England has put on a mini tournament like this, and you look at all the other ones, and there were hiccups at the beginning as well. I get what you're saying, and Connor makes a good point about not being able to do the turnover for branding and such. But
I think
forgive my cynicism.
Here I am, like trying to stick up for English efficiency. I never thought I'd do that.
I mean, the UEFA point again. This is the same country, the same organisation that thought it'd be good to have a major final in Baku, where there was no airport within an hour of it. So I have no faith in their organisation. £30 for a ticket, just seeing that is, if that is true, that is absolutely utterly absurd.
I thought it was 35, so yeah, I mean it is. I don't know if that's just purely because they made it into a tournament, so they could value it a bit more as opposed to just a little friendly game. I don't know, but that to me put me off. I'm not going to pay £30 just to watch 1 or 2 United players. Obviously, I'm not really a Lionesses fan. I'm a Man United fan. So if I did go, it would have purely just been to support Honour or the 3 or 4 Lionesses. Yeah, absolutely. There was something that you picked up on there, though. We can touch on that now, Rob, about the actual quality of the teams. I mean, Canada obviously went in as gold medalists. We had a fantastic run going into this as well, scoring like 40 odd goals conceded leading on. Spain, an amazing run. I think their run ended, obviously, I think they had 8 or 9 wins on the trot. Germany as well, scoring for fun and only conceding 2. So going into this tournament, it was actually on paper 4 very, very real good teams in some good stadiums. But yeah, the attendances obviously just didn't quite show that. But what were your thoughts, Rob, going into this tournament in regards to like score lines and stuff like that? Because it wasn't very heavily scores, 1-0s, 1-1s, nothing really massive.
Yeah, but I would say it wasn't as if the quality of the games were low quality matches. I think it was more just the fact that there was good attacking and good defending in equal measure. I don't personally think that you, especially at the top level of international football, unless you get things like red cards, etc., or a real freak result, you don't tend to see 5-6 nil drubbings as much as we might be used to domestically. And I think, as I said, realistically, we could play, Canada. I think realistically, the sort of side, if they were in the Euros, they would be getting to, the quarters, semis, the final. Germany and Spain will both be there or thereabouts, barring, a colossal shock in the summer. So we shouldn't have been expecting high-scoring sort of games. And yeah, exactly. Again, that point about the price still just disgusts me. I mean, just to put that into perspective, if it was 35, as I think you said, John, because I think I did see tickets sold for that, that's only £10. That's £10 less than my entire Chelsea women season ticket the whole year. And that, to me, is absolutely, utterly absurd. Because with the best will in the world, I think Chelsea women would beat the Lionesses. If I'm honest, if you probably maybe take the Chelsea Lionesses out and they play for Chelsea, I think probably we would win it.
Well, you've won Man City plenty of times in the past, so
exactly. Exactly. But that is, that's absolutely absurd. But I think it was a good tournament in terms of the quality of the football and the preparation. Again, it's nice to actually see England with world-class players and a world-class coach. That's the one thing I really did notice in this tournament. Sarina Weigmann's ability to make tactical decisions, not being afraid to bring off big names, not being afraid to change the system, rotating around the squad and using the squad. And that's one thing that I think, in the past we will all agree, and certainly under the previous manager, there was an awful lot of favouritism. And I don't think anyone can look at that tournament and can say, Sarina Weigmann has her favourites. She gave everyone, I think, maybe the exception of Neem Charles, I think possibly Zelem, a start. She gave everyone but Neem Charles some minutes. She's given Charles minutes in previous games. I don't really think there was an obvious place to bring in Neem Charles. I think maybe if they'd been in a different situation, she'd have saw minutes. I'm not going to pretend this is some sort of vendetta. I don't think she showed particular bias to any side. She gave a lot of players, opportunities. And I think that's the benefit we have of Sarina Weigmann, who's coming in, who doesn't have any vested interest in the WSL, etc. She's not an ex-WSL manager. So you can't have those accusations of bias. One thing she is a winner. And she will want to win those games. And what I really liked was that, especially when it came to the final game and we had a chance of winning the tournament, we put an 11 out there that wasn't an 11 to give minutes out to players and try things. It was 11 to go out there and win. And far too often, both the England men and England women have gone and done matches, and they've had a chance of winning something or been in the cricket, and they've tinkered and experimented. And she did exactly she used the first couple of games to tinker and experiment and make changes, and after that, it became very, very clear that she thought we had a chance of winning. Yeah, as someone says, have the Wolfsburg players and most of Canada was off season. I think all of the teams that are at that tournament, all of them will come away relatively happy with how the tournament went. I don't think any of them will look at it and say it was a bad, experience. Someone say, I think Sarina has done a wonderful job on that. That to me is, I think, the reason why I'm now more confident about England in the summer. I don't necessarily think we're the favourites for the Euros. I do think we probably can win it because we've got world-class players, a lot of them that are coming into their own sort of peak. All the big sort of thing I think for me is there's now a world-class manager, and that's something I don't think I've ever been alive in England, men or women, having a world-class manager, someone who genuinely, Sarina Weigmann, if she was available on the club level, she could walk into any club job on the planet with maybe, you're talking the exceptions of sort of Emma Hayes at Chelsea, would she probably, rebuff there, maybe not. Whoever's a manager at Barcelona, because there's no reason to sack them. But she is someone who can walk into any job on the planet. And I think having that level of tactician and that level of coaching there is something we've never done before.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, it's hard to judge it on the friendlies building up to this tournament, but I've been very impressed with what I've seen. I've seen players play that doesn't usually play, and I've seen that rotation. I've seen experimental formation, and to actually come away and win this. I know we was at home as well, and it's a friendly tournament, but you can guarantee none of the nations wanted to lose a game in this tournament because they are very four passionate teams. So to come away and actually win that tournament. I think it's a massive success. I'm not going to get carried away, but it was definitely a success. Yeah. Catherine, just your thoughts. Sorry, Colin, just before you come in. There was a comment on screen about Canada. I mean, what were your thoughts going into this tournament? Did you think Canada was on the best, one of four?
Well, about half the squad plays in the NWSL, so a lot of them haven't actually played since October. This is in a way kind of like a preseason tournament. I was really excited that they were coming to this tournament because, you're playing Spain. If this tournament was a group stage at any competition, it would be the super group of death because these were top teams. So it's a good thing. I always take these tournaments with a grain of salt now because Matilda's coach, the head coach, Tony Gustafsson, has this expression of changing between preparation and competition. And I think these tournaments increasingly are like preparatory tournaments. Yes, they're competitive. Yes, people go in to win, but you're not going to see people like players breaking their backs to try to win these tournaments. It's not going to be the same as a Euro, or which maybe in the past it might have been, but not anymore. So I don't know. I think it's an interesting tournament for Canada to enter because you get to see where our players are ahead of a lot of their seasons, but also you get to see them play against other really competitive nations while at the same time wondering, okay, well, what is Bev Priestman going to do with our team? Is she going to stay in that same direction? Is she going to try new players out? So I don't know. For me, it's a mixed one because on the one hand, you have to look at it and go, okay, this is a tournament they want to win. But on the other hand, it is a friendly tournament, and that has a limitation in what the coach might want to do, what the players might want to do. I do think if anything, these tournaments are an indication of where the head coach might be wanting to go with. And it's maybe a chance for more fringe players to try to break into and show what they can do. Sorry, I went on a whole spiel there.
Yeah, no, I actually 100% agree. And I was going to say, John, just before that, I'm not going to get carried away with England winning it because ultimately we won it by, 1 goal, 2 goal difference or something like that. We didn't win it by beating Spain in the final. We won it by scoring 1 or 2 extra goals. I think
one of which may have been offside.
Exactly. So, I think our goal difference was +2 and Spain's was +1. So it's, it's not. Don't get me wrong. It's good for the players to get the feel of winning and winning a trophy, but I don't think you can use that as a reflection to, we've won this tournament. That means in the Euros we're favourites. We're not. I think you just use that as a stepping stone that yes, this team can win. They can hold their own in an individual game against Spain. Obviously, the 0-0. And I just think that's a good platform to have. And Catherine was right in what she was saying. I think this was probably just used as more of, right, if we do play Spain again in the Euros, what have we learned? What players can adapt to certain situations and things like that? It's just a learning experience for them. Yes, it's nice. It's a trophy at the end of it. And, the players get that feel of winning. But I think the manager would have learned more actually about the squad and about individual games rather than actually winning the tournament.
I think for England fans, it was probably the first tournament where in a long time where you actually saw an indication of where the team really is at, because arguably prior to this summer, a lot of those players might have been trying to aim for one of those Olympic spots. And one does wonder how much of it was because, the internet, on top of that, the international, COVID created such a huge international break, especially in women's football. And then on top of that, you had UEFA qualifying, which, I read the stats in the last 6 games, England scored 53 goals. That's not a really good indication of where your team is at. So again, I take it with a grain of salt. Canada, half the squad entering their NWSL season haven't played in months. Germany had 12 players out because of COVID and injury. So you didn't have the top level of competition that you could have had, but it's a good place to it's a good yardstick that we haven't seen in a while, especially for England.
That's the main point, actually, because I think me and you, John, have been on many shows and saying before, like, when 20-0 and 12-0 and all this kind of thing, it's like, that's great, but you're not going to learn anything in those games. Yeah. They're irrelevant. If you went into a tournament after winning 3-4 games, 12, 13, 14-0, you're going to be unprepared for the tournament because you've not been tested. So having these is actually more beneficial to the teams, and it will make for a better tournament as well.
I said, again, just sort of finishing up, I said to Mia Eriksson, I know sort of been on here before, and obviously she's very well respected, one of the queens of sort of football, women's football Twitter, that after the Canada game, that Serena Vagan would have learned more in that one game. And in the second 45 minutes of that, when we were leading, were pegged back due to a wonderful strike, and then had to sort of grind it out and tough it out, than she will have in any of the previous matches because they were such walkovers. And that is what I think the Arnold Clark Cup has been good for, is actually preparing us to playing against top teams and having to grind out results, because that's something England have always struggled with.
Keeping with the United theme, so obviously that was 4 Lionesses and honour in the Arnold Clark Cup. Let's talk a little bit about Jackie then, captaining Netherlands. I've got a fair bit of love on Twitter over the past week, and I think it was win 1, drew 1, lost 1, didn't quite win the tournament. I think they come second in the tournament. Just thinking of yourself, Connor, as a United fan, nice to see Jackie get some minutes. We haven't seen much of her, obviously due to injury and Skinner phasing her back in gradually, or maybe even potentially not getting a place because Balrisa, Katie and Ladd have been playing so well. But obviously playing for Holland, slightly different story. Usually plays on that right-hand side of a midfield 3. And it looks like she has some good games.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to keep mine brief because I'm not going to lie to anyone and say I watched any of the games. I didn't see a single minute of the Netherlands squad, so I'd be lying if I was sat here saying how she played, because I truly don't know. In terms of her wearing the captain's armband, I think that's great for her. It's more confidence, in terms of when she comes back to United. Like I said at the start, we've had 3 or 4 people that went away and came back, that wore the captain's armband with their national side, which is good. It does show, though, that she's coming back into full fitness, so it'll be interesting to see what Skinner does when she's back, because now the midfield was on a good run. That, like as you said there, the Ladd, Barisa, Zelem partnership, it was working so well. Not so much against City last week, so we'll see what happens this weekend, and then obviously moving forward whether Jackie gets back in, because clearly now Jackie's fully fit because she's played a couple of times. I think she started twice and came off the bench. So she's clearly fit enough to start. So it'll just be interesting to see what happens when she comes back to United, because she's clearly favoured by the Dutch squad. But I've said for a while that I don't think Skinner trusts her enough in the system that he wants to play. That doesn't mean she's a bad player. That just means she's not fully adapted in that particular system. But who knows? She might have been learned while she was out with injury and things like that. I'm sure Skinner and her would have had conversations about what he wants of her when she comes back. So now she's back to full fitness. It'll be good to see her back in the squad, and good to see her actually utilised in that midfield, because as I've said multiple times, you can never have too many good players, because we're going to need them now with a couple of injuries and the running that we've got. We're going to need all these players on top form.
As a Jackie Cronin fan, I think I could say it was good to see that she got the playing time that she got, because this is her first, I believe this is her first really complete inclusion into the Netherlands squad since Mark Sampson took over. And, like whenever you have managerial changes, you could fall, even though you might still be the exact same player, you could fall in or out of favor. And so to see her not just get all that playing time, but at the same time get the captain's armband, I think, again, being a Jackie Cronin fan, was a good one to see with this new manager in place.
I don't think
the Netherlands results were, I think, a little bit shocking, personally. I saw parts of the France game, and
the France game, I will say they were comprehensively. And I think I've said this to someone else. I think the Netherlands to me would be one of those dark horses at the Euros, but it requires a lot of things, I think, to fall their way. Obviously, they've got Miedemeijer up front, who is a world class footballer par excellence. But besides Miedemeijer, the goal threats in the squad are perhaps a little bit, sort of thin. Whereas if you look at France have Katoto, but they've also got other players like Gauvin, who seems to play a lot better for her country, and all of the various Lyon and PSG players that come in. And for me, France are probably my favourites for the tournament in the summer. I've said this to someone else. I've looked at the squad that they sort of have. They've got, again, the group with Italy, Belgium, Iceland. You would expect them to qualify from that. Again, Miedemar is a high maintenance striker. She does need service, but she is a very, very good player. And the Dutch system, again, like at Arsenal, went in the last couple of years, maybe not so much this year, but the Dutch system is set so much around giving Miedemar chances and creating opportunities for her. I think it will be interesting, actually, to see.
Arguably, the tournaments they do best is when she only peaks at the end. Because
if
you look at the last Euro, she really the 20 the one that they won. Yeah. She kind of came into the tournament quite later on.
And this is why that there is one of the reasons why I do detest it when people say to me Miedemar isn't a big game player, because I've had people say this to me. I do think at times Miedemar does. At times in the WSL, she does have big games where she does struggle, but I think that's more due to the fact that other teams look at her and say, right, you've got to mark her out the game. And a lot of the time, it doesn't necessarily. Arsenal still win the game, but Miedemar, doesn't necessarily score. But because they've got 2 or 3 players, the United sort of Arsenal game a couple of weeks ago, that goal came because Miedemar dropped deep, and at that point, United couldn't push players up and press on her, and so you gave her the ability to play the ball through for Backstainers. And this is the thing that really does annoy with Miedemar. I still just say Miedemar is just a finisher. She is a much more complete footballer than people give her credit for as a striker. And I think, she can do more in that Dutch system. But I also do think that if you do just put her inside the box and you feed chances to her consistently, she might miss 1 or 2 of them, but then she will put the next 3 away. And that is the sign of A, world-class player, but B, also someone who tournament football could be so effective.
I would, if I was a coach, a manager, I would have no clue how to play her, because I don't know if you saw the game, I think it was 2 weeks ago with Arsenal, where she tracked back and gave this incredible assist. She's a player that arguably could do a lot more than what she does, and the reason she doesn't do a lot more than what she does is because she's so good at what she does best, which is score goals. But like you said, if you do mark her out and you don't give her the freedom to kind of come and help, then you lose almost a player on your team. I don't know. The Netherlands for me are I find they're such a bizarre team. If they're in the groove, they seem unbeatable. If they're not in the groove, you kind of wonder what's going on. I don't know if that's...
Catherine, as a Jackie fan then, what would you like to see more of that she does for the Netherlands at Man United then on week in, week out? Is it anything to do with her, the formation that we play, where Skinner puts her, the players around her? Because obviously she does do a different type of game there. We always joke about her scoring in an orange shirt and never, she'll probably score at LSV for Holland, but not for Man United. It's a bit of a crazy situation now, isn't it, really?
I think in part because of the way the Dutch play and their fluidity, she's better utilized, because I don't know if this is a good way, but I find she's feistier when she plays for the Netherlands, in part because she has more freedom to go out and to experiment. And she, again, because of their system, she knows that players will come into those spaces to back her up. And that is where they get the best out of her. But under, I was going to say under Mark Skinner, not under Mark Parsons, under the other Mark. I just don't think she, at the moment, has that ability to be as fluid, if that makes any sense.
But that could be for any reason. It's not necessarily her fault. That could be absolutely anything, couldn't it?
I just think she's better suited to their system. It just seems like she has more space and more time. And even when she doesn't have more time, she's then you've seen her in a while at United, but so she is coming back into full fitness. It would be nice to see more of the game plan kind of go around her, but then if you change to go more around her, then you do take away some of the other tools that Skinner's been building up for 6 months now. So I don't know. I just find, again, it's terrible, terrible way to describe her, but I find she has a feistiness and an unpredictability with the Netherlands side that you don't see as much with Man United. And it would be great to go and tap that unpredictability, because she can be a game turner. She can be a game changer. Even if you look in 2017, that first tournament she entered, and she never actually played in the Netherlands prior to that game for the Netherlands. And by the end of the tournament, she was a household name, and a lot of people said she was probably the biggest surprise they had. So, and it's because she was able to have that freedom. Anyway.
Everyone jump on Sang in the comments. He's slagging off Tooney and Russo, so let's get him.
I think that's a really interesting point, because I'm going to say I probably agree from what Sang said there, because, again, for the Netherlands, people forget Danielle van der Donk is a world-class footballer. Lieke Martins is a former, player of the year. And then you've got Miedema sort of up there. Whereas I think, United, there are players that can become world-class players, but there aren't attacking quality on that same level. And I think the thing is, in Groenen's case for the Netherlands, she can possibly give, a half chance to, say, Lieke Martins. Martins can get the ball sort of 30 yards from goal, turn, go past three players and put it in, like that. Miedema can get the ball 25 yards out, bang, put it in. And I think that's something that perhaps United haven't really seen from Groenen, because when they play Groenen, they tend to play her in that deeper role. And I think in that deeper role, it's a bit more problematic for her to do long passes forward and try and get the ball forward quickly, because you've seen it, and you saw it against Chelsea at home when Pernille Harder scored that goal, is that Pernille Harder's goal came from Groenen trying that longer pass, the ball getting turned over quickly, and then her not having the recovery pace. And I think that's something that in international football, because it's generally slower paced, you can get away with it. But in club football, where there's so much more counter-attacks and it's a lot less, possession-oriented, it becomes problematic. So when you take that aspect away from her game, she actually becomes a lesser player, or appears to be a lesser player.
I also think some of the creativity that she brings to the Netherlands side, she just can't bring to the Man United side, because of exactly what you said. She doesn't have Martins or Berenstein or Miedema in front that she can kind of give one of those incredible passes and know they can turn and convert.
I think that's interesting as well, because she plays day in, day out, 5 days a week, if not more, with the United players. She may not see like the Netherlands squad for maybe a month or 2 or 3 months at a time, but as soon as they get back together, and it's not just probably Jackie now, I'm talking about just international football in general. When you've got an international team that can still turn it on just with like 2 or 3 days practice, after not seeing each other, it does show how talented they are, and also how reactive and impulsive they are as well. A lot of it might be instinct as well, just kind of knowing, because world-class players, along with world-class players, they will do something special, won't they?
I think when you look at the women's side, like for a long time, they played sometimes as much with their national team side as they did with their club. That's obviously changing, which is a really good thing. But the most stable part of their footballing career was the international side until very recently. You look at some of the CVs of a lot of players, and they seem to be changing clubs almost every single year because contracts were 1 year. So I do think that is one of the reasons it does seem like almost the international is more set than the club side is, because until very recently, clubs were just getting a lot of turnover, and you're not going to get that same synergy than players you've been playing with for 5 years and winning tournaments with.
Mark's get a word, that was synergy. I'll write that one down. Kind of recognised it. Catherine, talk to me about the Algarve Cup then. So we saw Sweden, Italy, Denmark, Norway. So obviously we saw Sinja Brun, our 2 Norwegians as well, Balvisa and Thor. Thor obviously was captain as well. Great to see. Just what were your thoughts on that cup briefly, and then obviously we can get into a few of the players as well.
It's the only cup I haven't prepped.
No.
But the Algarve Cup is it's the oldest invitational. This is the cup that kind of started it for all the other cups. I don't know how many times the US won it, but it used to be their annual thing was to go down to Portugal. But I think this year for you guys, it was all the Scandinavians headed down to Portugal. To the Algarve Cup. But I have to admit, I didn't see. That's the only one I haven't.
Of course, everyone off guard, because I just saw 16 players. I just kept on going through every player, and it just never occurred to me that it was 16 players. So I didn't want to leave anybody out. So I just wanted to throw a few names out there. But whether or not you watched the match or not, you know a little bit about the
Oh,
Scandinavian.
I did. I watched. I will say I think it had my favourite moment I've seen at an invitational tournament of Hedvig Lindahl, who I've always liked as a goalkeeper, stepping up to take a penalty, blasting it in, and then saving one. That's the sort of contribution that I like seeing from a goalkeeper.
Yeah, that's a bit touchy for Man United men's team. That is with what happened with our Europa League. I think the same thing happened to us in the final. But no, it's great to see a goalkeeper take that penalty kick. But yeah, just on Bruno at the moment then. So I think you just played the one game. I don't know if you played in the second game. I'm not too sure. But I think they lost 1-0 and 3-0 or something along them lines. We haven't quite seen the best of Bruno yet. Obviously new to the country. Rob, you'll know her from the history way before Manchester United. What are your thoughts about Man United signing her? What you're expecting?
Yeah, it's an interesting signing. I think I said this at the time, and again, I think it's the sort of signing I think that maybe it would have been better getting an 18-month loan, because I think she might take a little bit of time to adapt to the WSL, a bit like with Sam Kerr. Sam Kerr took sort of 6 months to adapt, and then obviously sort of started flying. I do think Bruno is the sort of player that United do need up front, because he's a consistent goal scorer, is someone who can lead the line, does lead the line very well. My only, I suppose, concern, in a way, might be is that United play a very different brand of football to how Lyon play, in that Lyon possibly play a bit closer to Chelsea, and that Lyon will go 1-0 up, and then they will instantly go and try and get the second and get the third, and keep the boot on the throat until sort of maybe half time, and then play quite passively for the second half. United, I think, aren't at that level at this moment. Yeah, again, I think players deserve time to adjust, especially in these COVID-y times. It's difficult, and exactly. And I think United at the moment aren't quite at that same level where when they take leads, they sometimes get caught, I think, between two lines of whether they go on and push on or they sit back. And someone, as I said, needs service. I think so far all I've seen of Bruno is when she has been sort of in play, she's been coming quite deep to try and get involved in play. But then when you've got the quick counter-attacks and you're looking for that, player in the middle, she's not up there because she's coming so deep to try and be involved. But then when she should be getting the service, she's not up there to get the service. And I think in a way it almost needs a bit of a quiet naming. Yeah, Christine Endler, another former Chelsea goalkeeper, loves doing the same for shootouts. But also I should actually say with Endler, I believe she's just suffered a very bad injury. So thoughts and hope she recovers well soon, because she's a world-class goalkeeper as well. But I think with Bruno, you will start seeing the best of her, and it wouldn't surprise me, if she does sort of kick on a little bit. I almost wonder if United, and I've said this to someone else, I don't necessarily think her longer-term future lies at Lyon. I think Lyon will look at, shuffling their pack. They've got so many attacking talents there. And I think they're almost, she's looking at this as an opportunity. If she goes to United, gets them into, Champions League football, then it wouldn't surprise me to see Bruno sign permanently as sort of a flagship signing, because she is ultimately a big name. She's
also really young. So if you're able to secure her long term, then that could be an investment, Well, I do worry. I had actually been looking, because Denmark only played 2 games. They had to pull out of the 1 or 2 games. They had to pull out of one of their the third game because I think the second, because they have COVID cases. So one wonders if she was affected.
I think as well. You look at when she came in. We had Chelsea away, Arsenal away, and City away. Yeah. So it's not like she's been able to come in and get a goal in the first couple of games, and it would have been great. She literally couldn't have had a harder start for her. We played the best teams in England all away from home.
What does worry me? Just talking about Man United very quickly. I don't want to too much about it, but we had such a good run of games in the build-up to those 3 or 4 top matches that we played, and we've still got another one to come as well. That I don't want to break up what we already had that was working. But on the flip side, I don't want Bruno not to get any game time and then leave us at the end of the season when potentially she could stay and be with us for 2 or 3 seasons and do something special for us. So I think as much as I like Bruno and I like the fact that she's got competition with Russo, if Russo's working, then I think we should stick with that as well. How we can fit them both together is another conversation. I mean, Rob, if you just want to touch on that point before we move on to Norway a little bit.
Yeah, I never like seeing attacking lineups broken up. I think this is the issue Chelsea fans had last year with Pernilla Harder, because Pernilla Harder's a world-class player, but the Kerr and Kirby combination was so good, you almost sort of felt like she was a bit of a spare part. And I think now that, Sam Kerr's been off at the Asia Cup for a while, Pernilla Harder came in and obviously showed why she is such a world-class footballer. And I think now the challenge for Emma Hayes for the rest of this season, I think this will be the make or break as whether Chelsea win the league or not, is if they can successfully harness the fact that Wrighton looks so much better playing in the front three, Harder looks so much better playing through the middle, Sam Kerr obviously wants to play through the middle, and Frank Kirby plays well with Sam Kerr. But you can't play with all four of them, and playing with three of them seems to affect one of them like detrimentally. So how do you balance it? And I think that to me is the big question for the rest of the season.
Most hastings, just keeping everyone happy and keeping everyone fresh. Thor and Barisa, Connor. So great that they both got some game time. Two fan favourites as well. Do you think that they'll both come back and continue playing for United, or do you think that they'll kind of get, I would say, muscle, but I don't think you can muscle Thor. But do you reckon somebody else might take their places, because they've done really well in the build to these games and done really well on international duty? I know that the results didn't go the way, but a couple of good performances at least.
Yeah, we don't really have anyone else more than Eddie with injuries and other kinds of things. So I'd expect them both to come back in. But on top of that, they've been playing well anyway. So barring injuries to themselves, obviously I know there was a concern over Maria, but then she played yesterday or the night before anyway. So she'll be fine for the weekend. They've both been good this season. They've both been good for the national sides, and they've been good for us. So, and I think it's important. They've got that relationship. When we had Phil O'Connor on here, it talks about the spine of the team. You've got Maria playing at centre back, and you've got Vilda in front of her. You get a couple of players that they played with before, and you then start to have a really good spine of the team. And so it's like I said at the start, and I'll repeat it again, that it's good that it shows we're on the right track when we've got players kind of scattered all across Europe, playing for the national sides. Up to Maria got the captain's armband, which was good as well. They seem to have a good relationship between the two of them, which is not always a given. I think we all expect when they go back to their national teams for them all to be best mates. That doesn't always happen. But it seems like Maria and Vilda are, which is good to see. But yeah, when they come back, they'll both be back in the team. I don't think you can drop either of them. Centre backs, we've got Maria and Diane. So we've got two, unless Aoife Mannion or Millie makes a miraculous kind of recovery. And in midfield, Vilda's been one of our best midfielders this season. So you can't take her out of the equation either. The only slight worry would be, I believe, someone correct me. I think actually someone put it in the comments a bit earlier. You're gonna have to bear with me about 10 seconds while I find it.
Just while you're looking for that comment, I'm going to ask Catherine a quick question. Barisa and Jackie together in the midfield. Would you like to see that one?
Yes.
Quick answer on it. A lot of people would agree with you.
Yeah, no, it was this comment here about the minutes played.
Yeah.
Well, that one there. Either or. So Barisa and Maria have played the most over this international break. That's a slight concern because, like I said, I'd rather they be playing for United rather than the national side from a selfish point of view. But if there was a slight worry, that's what I mean. Maybe we will see Jackie, Zelem, and Ladd. I know this isn't a preview. Maybe we'll see that midfield slightly change at the weekend if Boris has played 230 minutes, over the last 10 days or so. She'd already played the City game prior. We've got City again at the weekend. Maybe she'll be the one that maybe drops that just because of the amount of minutes she's played.
I just move it on because we've only got like 5-10 minutes left. So I'll just quickly whiz through a few of the other games that was played that includes Man United players. So we mentioned Diane Caldwell. She won 2 games and lost a game for Ireland. We've got Scotland, Hansen, Smith and Thomas. Also, I think 1-2, lost 1. And then we've got Carrie Jones, Hayley Ladd, and making a senior team debut was Chloe Williams for Wales as well. So nice to see a few of the local countries players get involved there as well.
That was at the Pinatar Cup.
I'm glad you pronounced that one because I wasn't even going to give it a go.
I might be pronouncing it wrong.
I think it's Pinatar, so I'm gonna back you on this. I feel we're right on Pinatar.
I do find it odd that all the Scandinavians went to the Algarve Cup and all the Celtic nations went to the Pinatar Cup, with the exception of Northern Ireland. It's a bit odd.
I will just ask you this: what do you guys think? Who obviously follows women's football and for quite a while. What do you think about these friendly tournaments? Are they just glorified friendlies, or do they serve a purpose? I think it makes it a bit more exciting as a fan to play in a kind of a mini cup. But is that all it is? Or what do you guys think about it? Go on, Rob, you go first.
It depends. I think who the opposition is at the tournament in relation to you. Like, for example, if England announced they were going to go and play sort of several nations, playing 3 teams in the Arnold Clark Cup that we were just going to absolutely wallop, then I wouldn't have taken as much interest in it as I did, because I've been like, oh, this isn't going to teach us anything. So I think part of it is that aspect of it. I will say, I do think that the competition aspect of it is, as you said earlier, Catherine, I think it's probably, more preparatory than, competitive. At the same time, winning any kind of silverware can't be a bad thing. It can build that winning mentality. And I've said this in a lot of teams. I think, the most successful teams are the ones that win something and then they don't stop there. They go on and they win another thing and win another thing, win another thing. Because I think when you start seeing trophies and taking them for granted, that's when you fall into a really dangerous position. You should never think, we can afford to throw away this trophy. So I'm more interested in watching. I do hate them for I hate the injuries. I do like them for football. I don't like internationals when they are sort of, tedious sort of competitions against teams you're going to wallop and you don't really learn the thing. I would rather, and I said this, I'd rather England lost all 3 games at the Arnold Clark Cup if we played 3 decent opposition and we lost them because we, learned things about the squad, we found deficiencies in the squad, and then we can work to remedy them. Because at the end of the day, I would rather we lose the Arnold Clark Cup. And again, the same with Spain. I'm sure Spain will not mind losing the Arnold Clark Cup if they're lifting the Euros in the summer.
For me, it's like this is the only Type 3 FIFA break that exists where you can have this. It used to be that there were a lot of these that would occur during the year, but this is the only time of the year now that FIFA actually allows for 3 games with an international break if it's not an official tournament. It used to be a couple of years ago you were allowed to play 4 during this break, so they've actually decreased it. I like it for the simple reason that you get a lot of nations now that in the past probably would have only played during official tournament qualifications. So like they would have tried to qualify for CONCACAF or for UEFA. So I'm thinking something like a Jamaica, or there were a lot of Caribbean teams that actually got together and played in this international break. It gives a chance for smaller nations to get together because it's maybe 1 or 2 days longer than the other international breaks. It gives a chance for these nations to get together and get 3 good games. And I think for cost effectiveness, it's quite worth it because you can host these mini tournaments. And so I like it for that on that sense, because there are a lot of nations that just might not have the budget to have friendlies in every single window, whereas this is a friendly they know they can rely on because there's so many of these tournaments around and you get 3 games out of it. So I like it for that sense. For teams like England, Canada, Germany, like at this point with the amount of travel that their players get underneath their feet, could we get very soon to a point where this could be a counterproductive window for them? Yes. But for the smaller nations, I would argue this is still a necessary window, and it gives them a chance to maybe lift some silverware, which they might not otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we go, it doesn't involve Man United players, but there was a She Believes Cup as well. There was one moment in there that a lot of people would find amusing. One player wouldn't have found it amusing. Catherine, I'm sure if there's anyone in the comments, they might know about it. But if they don't know about it, just kind of explain what happened during, I think it was New Zealand and...
So this past weekend, in their second games, respective of the She Believes Cup, the U.S. took on New Zealand, and the U.S. beat New Zealand 5-0. But what was a little bit incredible is that 3 of the goals came from a Kiwi player who scored... a hat trick of own goals. And I mean, you try to get her to score those again, she won't be able to. Like it happened within a 30-minute span, and you just keep watching it and going, I feel so bad. It was Michaela Moore for this player, but it is a little bit unbelievable that she got I think it was also Connor was saying she got like left foot, right foot header. So it was even a perfect hat trick of own goals.
Unbelievable.
I've been researching it to find out, has a player ever scored a hat trick of own goals before, let alone a perfect one? I can't find it, but yeah, it was a bit of an incredible one for this player. Luckily for her, she's got years of experience, both at club and international side. I know she's got more than 100 caps, so I think this is a player who will get over it. But it's an unfortunate and maybe somewhat amusing note to have on your resume. And I suggest looking at it, because when you go, you could see it's not because she's a bad defender. It really is 3 bad lucks that happened to her within 30 minutes. Yeah.
When you sent me the video, I mean, obviously I read it on Twitter, but when you sent me the video, I had to watch it, and it's just worth a watch. The whole video lasts 6 minutes, but that's the whole highlights. You don't even need to watch it for 6 minutes, but try and find it, because it was interesting. And what made it even worse is on the highlights, you saw her actually get subbed off as well. So not only did you concede 3 goals, the manager subbed her off, and I can understand that mentally she must have been all over the place. I get it.
I think based on something I saw said, one of her teammates spoke to her after them, and she asked to be subbed off. Seemed to be the message that I've heard come out of it. Obviously, that may be the official party line that they're towing, but it wouldn't surprise me if that was the case, because I've seen it once before. A hat trick of own goals happened in the it was a game in the Dutch Liga Sten van Boys, I think it was, in a game where he scored a striker and scored a hat trick of own goals in his own net, ironically scoring more than he'd scored all season in his own net in one game. But at the end of it, he looked absolutely distraught, and I think it's important to recognise again. I appreciate it was quite funny to sort of see it. I didn't like the immediate pile on that happened and people using it as an excuse to bash women's football, because it wasn't as if these were ridiculous own goals. It was just
people who do that are going to use any excuse to.
I know, but I think it's important to call it out, and I think it's important to acknowledge that anyone that does that is an idiot, because these were own goals that every defender during their career at some point will be in that unfortunate position where you'll miskick a cross or you'll panic with a striker breathing down your neck, etc. Someone says they can boast that they've never scored an own goal. I mean, fair enough. I tip your hat off to you, John. You've done something that Paolo Maldini never managed in his career, because he had own goal attributed to him. But at the end of the day, I think she's going to be promoted in a couple of weeks' time with Liverpool. Most likely going to be champions. They might beat Arsenal this week in the FA Cup, and she will, be starring in that. So,
the thing about her hat trick is, if you look at the replay, it's not like these were mistakes. They're just these are own goals that are really just bad place, bad time, bad deflection, and it to happen within one game.
All 3 of them. If you take her out of the equation, all 3 of them, there's a striker there to score anyway. So either she gets a hat trick of own goals, or the striker gets a hat trick. So that's the thing I'd want to make. I think it's important to make it clear is it wasn't as if these were catastrophic, ridiculous sort of overhit back passes or sort of 30-yard volleys into their own net or something really, really common. It was just
because I think it's just worth watching it. You do wonder, did she break a mirror, go underneath a ladder, and see a black cat just before going? Yeah. Because how does somebody get that unlucky? There was a reverse of shot. If you could go hug her and go, it's never happened to me, because guess what? I was never good enough to ever be in your position. But yeah,
she proudly can boast the stat that she's one of the few players to have been involved in a hat trick involving the US women's national team. There is only, I think it was about 8 players who can boast that stat now, so she can join the pantheon of some true US footballing greats.
It's just unlucky, isn't it? I think the only example I can think of that swings to mind is from the men's game. It was Jonathan Walters for Stoke.
Against Chelsea.
Where he scored 2 own goals and then missed a penalty in the same 90 minutes. That's the only one that springs.
He also conceded a penalty in that game.
Exactly. It's just one of those. It happened. It's unfortunate, like you said there. They probably would have got, not all of them might not have got in, but 2 of those probably would have gone in anyway. And yeah, it's just one of those. It's unfortunate for her.
We've come to the end of the show, guys. Rob, Catherine, really appreciate you coming on. And me and Connor, we follow a bit of women's football, of course we do, but we don't really follow the internationals as strongly as you guys. So to get your opinions on the past week or 2 has been great. So thank you very much for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the comments. We are back tomorrow, Friday Night Fans Forum. Still undecided on the time, so it's either going to be 7 or 8 o'clock. So if you're watching this now and wonder where we are tomorrow, we are definitely on. We just don't know if it's 7 or 8 tomorrow. So we'll tweet that out as soon as we can. And then Saturday Night Live on Saturday, followed by match day content for the derby on Sunday. So we can really look forward to that one. Thank you to everybody again. And if you want to just shout out your socials, Rob, if anybody wants to find you on Twitter, where can they do that, mate?
At RJP Journalism.
Awesome. Catherine, I think yours is on screen. Is that correct?
At Footy Packet.
Thank you very much.
Because I couldn't find anything more original.
Almost as good as mine. We'll leave it there. Thank you very much, guys, and we shall see you again soon. Bye-bye.